Welcome everyone. Today's topic is personality development. What is personality development? The behaviors that make people different from one another or those behaviors that psychologists consider to be at the root of personality. Personality is what makes a person a unique person and it is recognizable soon after birth. Then, what is personality? Personality refers to relatively enduring characteristics that differentiate one person from another and that lead people to act in a consistent and predictable manner, both in different situations and over extended periods of time. It is a distinctive and relatively stable pattern of behaviors, thoughts, motives, and emotion that characterizes an individual. Personality development is the development of the organized patterns of behaviors and attitudes that makes a person distinctive. This development occurs due to the ongoing interaction of temperament, character, and environment. Personality theories, psychoanalytic unconscious motivation, trait, specific dimension of personality, humanistic inner capacity for growth, social cognitive influence of environment. Sigmund Freud pioneered personality psychology. What is the structure and development of personality? According to Sigmund Freud and his successor, that is psychoanalyst. According to psychoanalysts, much of behavior is caused by parts of personality which are found in the unconscious and of which we are unaware. Freud's three level of awareness or consciousness: the conscious mind, the preconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Freud's theory of personality, that is psychoanalysis, three levels of consciousness. Conscious mind, things we are focusing on. Preconscious mind, things are not currently aware but which we could focus on. Unconscious mind, that which we are unaware of. Psychoanalysis, Freud theory of personality. Freud's theory suggests that personality is composed of the id, the ego, and the superego. The unorganized inborn part of personality whose purpose is to immediate reduce tension relating to hunger, sex, aggression, and other primitive impulses. Ego restrains intentional energy in order to maintain the safety of the individual and to help the person to be a member of society. Superego, the rights and the wrongs of society and concepts of the conscious and the ego ideal. Freud and personality structure. With energy constantly striving to satisfy basic drives, that is pleasure principle. Ego seeks to gratify the yet in realistic ways, reality principle. Superego, voice of conscience that focus on how we ought to behave. The id. The id uses the most primitive of thinking process. The id operates on the pleasure principle, seeks pleasures and avoids pain. That is, I want what I want now. The id operates completely at an unconscious level, no direct contact with reality. The id has two major instincts: eros, life instinct, motivates people to focus on pleasure seeking tendencies, example, sexual urges. Thanatos, death instinct, motivate people to use aggressive urges to destroy. The ego. The ego consists of a conscious faculty for perceiving and dealing intelligently with reality. The ego acts as a mediator between the it and the superego. The ego is partly conscious, deals with the demands of reality, makes rational decisions. The ego serves the id, the rational part of personality that maintains contact with reality, governed by the reality principle. What consequences are they to be my behavior? The ego is the executive of the personality. The ego controls high mental processes, reasoning, problem solving. The ego uses the higher mental processes to help satisfy the urges of the id. Freud's theory, the superego. The superego, the moral part of personality, internalized rules of parents and society. Superego consists of two parts: conscience, notations of right or wrong, ego ideal, how we ideally like to be. Superego constrains us from gratifying every impulse, example murder, because they are immoral and not because we might get caught. Superego partially conscious and partially unconscious. According to Freud, an individual's feelings, thoughts, and behavior are the result of interaction of the id, the superego, and the ego. Freud's theory of personality. The id, the ego, and the superego are the continually in conflict with one another. This conflict generates anxiety. If the ego did not effectively handle the resulting anxiety, people would be so overwhelmed with anxiety that they would not be able to carry on with the task of everyday living. Ego tries to control anxiety, that is, to reduce anxiety through the use of ego defense mechanism. Ego defense mechanism. A defense mechanism is a psychology tendency that the ego uses to help prevent people from becoming overwhelmed by a conflict and resulting anxiety among the id, the ego, and the superego. Defensive mechanisms operate at unconscious level. We are not aware of them during the time that we are actually using them. However, we may later become aware of the previous operation and use. Freud's theory, defense mechanism, repression, pushing unacceptable and anxiety producing thoughts into the unconscious, involves intentional forgetting but not consciously done. Repressed material can be memories or unacceptable impulses. A rape victim cannot recall the details of the attack, regression, acting in a way characteristics of early life stages or earlier stage of personality. An young adult, anxious on a trip to his parents' home, sits in the corner reading comic books as he often did in grade school. Reaction formation. Replacing an anxiety producing feeling, which its exact opposite, typically going overboard, depressed thoughts appear as mirror opposites. A man who is anxious about his interest in gay men begins dating women several times a week. Rationalization, creating false but believable excuses to justify inappropriate behavior. Real motive for behavior is not accepted by ego. A student cheats on an exam, explaining that cheating is legitimate on an unfair examination. Denial, claiming and believing that something which is actually true is false. The person disbelieves that she is aged, asserting that I am not getting older. Displacement, redirecting emotional feelings, example anger, to a substitute target involves directing unacceptable impulses onto a less threatening object or person. A husband, angry at the way his boss treated him, screams at his children. Instead of telling you, Professor, what you really think of her, you tailgate and harass a slow driver on your way home from school. Projection, attributing one's own unacceptable feelings or beliefs to others, perceiving the external world in terms of one's own personal conflict. An employee at a store, tempted to steal some merchandise, suspects that other employees are stealing. Sublimation. Substitute socially acceptable behavior for unacceptable impulses. Playing video games instead of getting in a fight. Stages of personality development. Freud's psychoanalytic theory of personality suggests that personality develops through a series of stages, each of which is associated with a major biological function. More specifically, Freud theorized that as people age, they pass through several systematic stages of psychosexual development in their personality. Psychosexual stages of development are source of unconscious conflict. The stages of personality development involve critical events that occur in every child's life. At each level, there is a conflict between pleasure and reality. The resolution of this conflict determines personality. At any age, a fixation can occur. If needs are either undergratified or overgratified, we become fixated at a particular stage. Each stage also involves an erogenous zone, part of the body that involves sexual pleasure. Fraud and personality development. Personality forms during the first few years of life, rooted in unresolved conflicts of early childhood, psychosexual stages, oral, 0 to 8 months, centered on the mouth, anal, 18 to 36 months, focus on bowel, bladder, L. Phallic, 3 to 6 years, focus on genitals, Oedipus complex, identification, gender identity. Latin, 6 to puberty, sexuality is dormant, genital puberty on sexual feelings towards other. Strong conflict can fixate an individual at stages 1, 2, or 3. Freud's stages of personality development, oral stage. The oral stage is the first period occurring during the first year of life, anal stage. Next comes the anal stage, lasting from approximately age 1 to age 3. Phallic stage. The phallic stage follows with interest focusing on genitals. Latency period then follows the latency period lasting until puberty. Genital stage. After puberty, people move into the genital stage, a period of mature sexuality. Oral stage of development. Time period birth to 18 months. Erogenous zone is mouth. Gratification through sucking and swallowing. Oral fixation has two possible outcomes. Oral receptive personality preoccupied with eating or drinking. Reduce tension through oral activity, eating, drinking, smoking, biting nails. Passive and needy sensitive to rejection. Oral aggressive personality, hostile and verbally abusive to others. Anal stage of development. Time period 1 to 1.5 years to 3 years of age. Erogenous zone is the anus. Conflicts around toilet training. Anal fixation has two possible outcomes. Anal retentive personality, stingy, compulsive orderliness, stubborn, perfectionist. Anal expulsive personality, lack of self control, messy, careless. Phallic stage of development, time period 3 to 6 years. Erogenous zone is the genital. Self stimulation of the genital produces pleasure at the age 5 or 6, near the end of phallic stage. Children experience the oedipal conflict, boys, the electra conflict, girls. A process through which they learn the identity with the same gender parent by acting as much as like the parent as possible. Oedipus complex, boys versus electra complex, girls. Child is sexually attracted to the other sex parent and wishes to replace the same sex parent. Phallic stage of development, Oedipus complex, little cell boys. Castration anxiety, son believes father knows about his desire for mom, fears dad will castrate him, represses his desire and defensively identifies with dad. Phallic stage, extra complexion in little girls, penis envy. Daughter is initially attached to mom. Shift of attachment occurs when she realizes she lacks a penis. She decides that whom she means to obtain a penis substituted child, represses her desire for dad, incorporates the value of her mother, accepts her inherent inferiority in society. Latency period. During the latency period, little girls and the little boys try to socialize only with the members of their own gender. Freud postulates that children do this so as to help minimize the awareness of sexuality. Thus, they continue the process of sexual repression that began in the previous stage for those who successfully made it through the Oedipal complex or extra complex. Genital stage. When adolescents begin puberty, they enter the fifth stage of psychosexual development. They develop secondary sexual characteristics, example pubic hair. The onset of physical sexual characteristics reawakens people's sexual urges, and thus they are no longer able to successfully repress their sexual desires, impulses, and urges. They begin searching for a marital mate with whom they can share sex and intimacy. Summary of Freud on personality. Freud's psychoanalytic theory has provoked a number of criticism. Lack of supportive scientific data, the theory's inadequacy in making predictions, and its limitation owing to the restricted population on which it is based. Still, the theory remains popular. For instance, the neo-Freudian psychoanalytic theories built upon Freud's work, although they placed greater emphasis on role of the ego and paid greater attention to social factors in determining behavior. Freud's idea is scientific theory. Theories must explain observation and offer testable hypotheses. Few objective observation, few hypotheses. Freud's theory is based on his recollections and interpretation of patients' free association, dreams, and slip of time. Does not predict behavior or traits. Four types of personality theories: psychodynamic approaches to personality, humanistic approaches to personality, trait approach to personality, socio-cognitive approaches to personality. Psychodynamic source of information about personality obtained from expert analyzed from people in therapy. Cause of behavior, thoughts, and feelings. Unconscious internal conflict associated with childhood experience. Also, unconscious conflicts between pleasure seeking impulses and social restraints. Outlook on humans. Negative. Comprehensive of theory. Very comprehensive. Psychodynamic, psychoanalytic theories, many are called neo-Freudians. All place left emphasizes on sex. Carl Jung, personal versus collective unconscious. Balance between introversion and extroversion. Alfred Adler, striving for superiority. Motivation to master environment. Notation of an inferiority complex. Karen Horney, personality is cultural rather than biological. Humanistic personality theories. Source of information about personality obtained from self-reports from general population and people in therapy. Cause of behavior, thoughts and feelings. Self-concept, self-actualizing tendencies. Conscious feeling about oneself based on one's previous experiences. Outlook on humans positive. Comprehensive of theory, fairly comprehensive. The humanistic perspective, Maslow self-actualizing person, and Rogers person-centered perspective, healthy rather than sick, individual as greater than the sum of test scores. Humanistic personality theory, Maslow and Rogers. Humanistic approach. Rejected Freud's pessimistic view of personality, rejected behaviorist mechanistic view, more optimistic, positive about human nature. Humans are free and basically good. Humans are inner directed. Everyone has the potential for healthy growth. Health growth involves self actualization. Be all you can be. Given the right environmental condition, we can reach our full potential. Roger's person centered perspective. People are basically good with actualizing tendencies. Given the right environmental conditions, we will develop to our full potentials, genuineness, acceptance, empathy, self concept that is central feature of personality, positive or negative. Humanistic personality theories called out as self concept, our image or perception of ourselves, real self versus ideal self. We have a need for positive regard of approval from others, conditional worth or conditional positive regard, the conditions under which other people will approve of us. We change our behavior to obtain approval. What we need is unconditional positive regard. Anxiety signifies that we are not being true to our ideal self. Well adjusted person, self concept and experience. Poorly objective person is also reason, self concept and experience. Maslow's hierarchy of human motives. One must satisfy lower needs before one satisfies the higher. It starts from psychological safety, belongingness syndrome, esteem, self actualization, and transcendence. Self actualization is the accumulation of lifetime inner directed growth and improvement. Challenging ourselves to the fullest. Can you identify a self actualized individual? Characteristic of a self actualized person? Creative and open to new experience, commitment to a cause or a higher goal, trusting and caring of others, yet not dependent. Have the courage to act on their convictions. Trait personality theories. Source of information about personality obtained from observation of behavior and questionnaire responses from general population as well as from people in therapy. Cause of behavior, thoughts, and feelings. Stable internal characteristics. Some emphasize genetic basis, outlook on humans, neutral, neither positive nor negative. Comprehensive of theory, not very comprehensive. Trait approaches have tried to identify most basic and relatively enduring dimensions along which people differ from one another dimension known as traits. How many traits are they? How we can measure these traits? Where do we trait dimension originates? Alport's trait theory. Alport's most important personality traits are those that reflect our values. Alport suggests that there are three kinds of traits. Cardinal, a single personality trait that directs most of a person's activity, example, great less kindness. Central, a set of major characteristics that make up core of person's personality. Secondary, less important personality traits that do not affect behavior as much as central and cardinal traits do. Cattle's theory of personality. Cattle's trait theory has three types: dynamic, ability, temperament. Also, surface states less important to personality, source traits, more important basic underlying traits. Cattle identified 16 basic traits. Recently, personality theorists have begun to converge on the view that the basic five personality dimension emotional stability versus neuroticism, calm, secure, self-satisfied versus anxious, insecure, self-pitying, extroversion versus introversion, sociable, fun-loving, affectionate versus retiring, sober, and reserved, openness versus closed-mindedness, imaginative, independent versus practical, conforming, agreeableness versus disagreeableness, kind, trusting, helpful versus ruthless, suspicious, uncooperative, conscientiousness versus undependable, organized, careful, disciplined versus disorganized, careless, and impulsive. Five factor model of traits, the big five factor: emotional stability, extraversion, openness, agreeableness, and consciousness. Trait theory of personality summary: traits, characteristics of typical ways of acting, consistency across situations over time, distinctness, each personality is unique. Explain why individuals behave in certain ways, how many traits are there, and what they are. Not easy to answer, little contentness. How we can assess traits? Aim to simplify a person's behavior patterns. It is we can assess through personality inventories, MMPI, Minnesota multi-phase personality inventory. Most widely used personality inventory as a psychological disorder, not normal traits. Empirically derived test items selected based upon how well they discriminate between groups of traits. Do traits exist? The trait situation debate. Walter Mischel, 1968, argued that behavior is not consistent across time or situation. If no consistency, not much point in arguing for personality. Thus, personality is an illusion. Situationism. Achille believed that behavior is influenced more by the situation than any internal trait. Person situation interactionism. Both internal traits and the situation we are in are important for determinants of behavior. Social cognitive learning approaches to personality theories. Source of information about personality obtained from experiments, observation of behavior, and questionnaire responses from the general population. Cause of behavior, thoughts and feelings, reciprocal influence between people, cognitions and behavior, and the environmental situation colored by the perception of control. Outlook on humans, neutral, neither positive nor negative, comprehensive of theory, not very comprehensive. Social cognitive learning perspective, behavior learned through conditioning and observation. What we think of situation affects the behavior, interaction of environment and intellect. Social learning theory, Bandura, theoretical origins in behaviorism emphasize the role of learning in personality, classical conditioning, open conditioning, modeling. Instead of studying what's going on person's mind inside traits, study what is going on outside the person environment. How do the environment shape the personality? Bandura also emphasized the importance of cognition in personality development. People develop a sense of self efficacy, a beliefs about our ability to achieve goals. Individuals with higher self efficacy accept greater challenge, try harder to meet challenges. Bandura also discusses the notion of reciprocal determination. The individual and the environment continually influence one another. Reciprocal determination of social cognitive, personal cognitive factors, environmental factors, behavior. Internal world plus external world is us. Reciprocal determination. Aggressive behavior, angry interaction. Friendly behavior, warm interaction. Social, cognitive, personal control. Internal locus of control. You pretty much control your own destiny. External locus of control, luck, fate, and other power control your destiny. Methods of study correlate feelings of control with behavior. Experiment by raising or lowering people's senses of control and noting the consequences and effects. Outcomes of personal control learn helplessness, uncontrollable bad event, perceived of lack of control, generalized helpless behavior. Important issues nurturing homes, prisons, colleges. This is the comparison chart of psychoanalytic social learning and humanistic theory of personality. Personality assessment. Personality assessment involves the techniques for systematically gathering information about a person in order to understand and predict behavior. Goal of personality assessment to obtain reliable, valid measures of individual difference that will permit the accurate prediction of behavior. How do we measure personality? Interview. Ask the person about themselves. Obtain information that reveals personality. Behavior observation. Watch the individual's behavior in action or simulated situation. Personality test. Objective test. Projective test. Behavioral assessment is based on the principle of learning theory. Behavioral assessment employs direct measurement of behavior to determine the characteristics related to personality. Objective personality test self-report questionnaires present the test taker with a number of specific items to which she is asked to respond either on a paper or on a computer screen. Self-report measures ask people about a sample range of their behaviors. These reports are used to interfere the presence of particular personality characteristics. Examples of objective personality measures MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphase Inventory 16 PF, 16 personality factor, NEO-PI, the Neo Personality Inventor. The most commonly used self-report is Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory (MMP2), designed to differentiate people with specific sorts of psychological difficulties from normal individuals. The most widely used personality instrument, MMPI-2, used in clinical and employment settings, has different scales. MMP samples items. I usually feel that life is worthwhile and interesting. False. If it is true, it's depression. I seem to hear things that people can't hear. True. Relate to schizophrenia. Measures aspects of personality that, if extreme, suggests a problem. Extreme suspiciousness may indicate paranoia. Projective test assessment. A projective personality test is one in which the subject is given an ambiguous stimulus and asked to respond spontaneously. Pictures or in plots, no clear answer. The ambiguous stimulus allows test takers to project their own needs, dreams, feelings into their response. The observer's response to a stimulus are then used to infer information about the observer's personality. All projective tests are based on the projective hypothesis, which states the individual response to an ambiguous stimulus represents projection of his or her own inner, often unconscious feelings and needs. Indirect method of personality assessment based on psychoanalytic assumption. Personality is mostly unconscious. People are unaware of contents of unconscious. The two most frequently used projective the Rorschach, thematic appreciation, Rorschach reactioning plots, thematic appreciation test, stories about ambiguous pictures, used to draw inferences about the storyteller's personality. The most popular projective techniques. Respond to in plot. What could this be? Thank you for listening.